Or turkey and ham.
All right. I'm going to use that, if you don't mind. Sir. Testing one.
You got to get it pretty high.
Yeah. Oh, we'll have to move it up. Testing. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. That sounds better.
I don't know what happened. Oh,
With
there
what?
it is.
It's right there.
Oh, it's in the folder.
Yeah, I put it in a folder. Now go into that folder. Oh, go there. You go. Now double click that file. Just hit open. And do you have a clicker?
I do, but that's
And
I'm going to
just-
charge you extra now.
Well, I have one.
Oh, it's right there.
This one right here. Bingo.
Okay.
I'm going to make that just a hair smaller. There we go. I think we were ready to roll. I think, and we got. Make sure. Let me step back here. Make sure the video. You don't have the video.
You want a microphone?
I have one. I have the microphone. Can you hear the microphone in the back? It says it's on. I think. How about that? Oh yeah, that's a whole lot better. Excellent.
You're
You know
good?
what? Why don't you turn the camera? I'm gonna stay over here. I'll stand on this side for you. Is that exactly what you guys had yesterday? Good. Well, that's good. I'm glad they switched it up, and so you didn't have that same thing 2 days in a row. We get what they give us. So what we normally do is bring Chick-fil-A in, but they do not allow, because Chick-fil-A is just easy. You just call them up and say bring it all in, and everybody loves Chick-fil-A. But when you're at a hotel like this, they don't let you control the food, and it's ridiculously expensive too. So really enjoy that. Even if you don't really enjoy your sandwich, if you guys would just really do me the favor of pretending like you really enjoy them, it would really go a long way. It is free for you. That is true. Oh no, you didn't. Oh. Well, there you go. That is the way to take care of it. Turn your clock so that I can see the clock back there. I really like that. That's nice to do. That definitely is, it helps. All right, so we'll get started in just a few more minutes. Yeah. Very good. Well, I sort of like doing day 2 of the class. It's a bit of a double-edged sword. Number one, I get the last word on evidence tracking software before you leave. But the other side of that coin is you're so beat down after a day and a half at this point. I'm hoping you have room for just a little bit more information without going into total overload. I will apologize ahead of time. I typically talk fast. I have a lot of information I want to get through and share with you guys. So I hope it's not too quick and you're able to process and absorb. Just to pick up on what I said earlier today, one of the things, I like to do these things a little bit differently. I could load up our software, I could run you through how to enter evidence, I could run through scanning barcodes. My objective here today really is to educate you. I'm hoping I'm going to tell you things that you don't already know, so that, as I mentioned earlier, when you go back and you look at your situation and you say, all right, I need to do something with evidence tracking software, I'm hoping that this presentation today will make you a lot smarter about what you're going to do. And then hopefully in the end you say, well, I think their software does all of those things. But in the end, maybe you look at our software and you say, I can't afford that software, or I don't want to do it for this reason or the other. Hopefully you are more aware of what you're buying and why you're buying it than to just blindly buy it. Okay? All right, well, let's get started. It looks like we've got most people are back and we're ready to get going. So a bit of an introduction to myself. My name is Ben Townsend. I have done over 100 implementations of our software over a lot of years. I was the project lead for our implementation for the Detroit PD, the Omaha PD, and the Boston PD. And I just throw those names out because everybody knows where Detroit, Omaha, and Boston are located at. Certainly that's not the typical install for us. Those are larger installs. And I've been doing this for over 12 years now, so there's probably absolutely nothing you can bring up that I have not seen or dealt with or worked with over the years. So I'm Ben, and it's good to meet you guys. So who is Tracker? I don't know if you've heard of Tracker Products. We are located in Cincinnati, Ohio, so you've got to go a couple thousand miles to the east. Tracker, we've been doing evidence tracking software for about 13 years now. We have over 400 implementations of our product around the country. So we definitely didn't come along last year, and this is our first year into doing this. All right, a couple of the very basic things that I just want to say, we do these things, but I don't want to really elaborate on them because they're it's almost the low bar for every evidence tracking product that is out there. We do barcoding of evidence. Okay, so when I go through our presentation today, just because I don't show you how to generate out a barcode in our software, I don't want you to leave and think, well, he didn't generate out a barcode. I didn't see him do it, so they must not do barcoding. Okay? I will concede that most of the people that claim to do evidence tracking software, to some degree or another, are going to put barcodes on evidence. Okay? We also do searching of evidence within our software, and most importantly, we do chain of custody. But so does everybody. Those are not on my top 10 list of things you've got to know. Man, I really hope that anybody you're looking at, if they don't do these 3 things, you probably shouldn't even be looking at them at all for any consideration. Okay, we also do basic reporting. There's an example of the barcode label within our software. Again, I don't want to spend a lot of time elaborating on this, but we do print out reports from our software. All right, so moving along. I want to ask you guys a question, and if you need to close your eyes to think about this, go ahead and do so. But I want you to get a mental image of a person, okay? I want you to think about the person that ran the evidence room prior to when you took over. Okay, you thinking about that person? You know what they look like? Some of you may have feelings popping up right now of anger and frustration, and so hatred, pure hatred. So here's the question I want to ask you now that you have that mental image in your mind. What do you think was the most significant improvement your predecessor made to the evidence room? That is the number one answer I get. They left. That's the most significant improvement they made. That's funny you say that because that's what I hear all the time. They left. Okay? Probably the image you're getting is they didn't do a whole lot. They probably left you with a big pile of crap. You're dealing with the pile of crap. For most of you in here, that's going to be the answer to that to some degree or another. So now that you think about that, I want to move into the next question. What do you think your successor will have to say about you? So, once you are awarded the opportunity to leave the dungeon of the PD and you're not doing evidence anymore, and so 10 years from now when your predecessor is in this class, and Joe's still teaching it in 10 years, I'm certain he's still doing this in 10 years, what is that person going to say about you, and what is the most significant thing you did for them? Are they going to chuckle and say they left? What's that? I think that would be, now you would hope they would say that, okay? But what you really don't want them to say is they left. But most people in here sort of agreed with that sort of sentiment. All right, so now the next question I'm going to ask, and this will be the last one for the questions. If you could make just one improvement, what would you do to make a difference? So you're learning. I mean, I can only imagine the amount of things that are in your book and on the paper. If you were to write down a list of all the things that you would love to do to make a difference in your evidence room, and you could only pick one of them, what would that one thing be? Because one thing that you're not going to be able to do is go back and implement everything you're hearing from here in 2 days. I mean, you're probably overwhelmed as to how do I just do one or two of them. So the question becomes, if you can do one thing, what is that one thing that you're going to do? All right, so as we get into our product here a little bit, I just want to show you some of the clients that use our software. And yes, Apple Computer is using our software for one of their digital forensic teams that is tracking evidence. So this is a list of a lot of our clients, sort of going into your world. These are some of the police departments that I rattled off earlier. This is not representative of all of our clients, but these are some names on the board of some agencies that you would recognize that have been using our software successfully for quite a few years. All right. So let's get into the top 10 things that I want you to understand. You could almost, if you like to take notes, you could almost write down on a piece of paper right now 1 through 10. And I'm going to give you the 10 things that I believe you absolutely should be considering when you look at evidence tracking software. Now there's no doubt some of the things that I'm going to go through, you're going to be able to say, you know what, I don't care about that. I don't need that one thing right there. I'm fine not having it. But what I don't want you to do is make a decision void of that information. All of a sudden you buy a software product that was like, oh, I didn't know it didn't do that. It's fine for you to say, I don't want 6, 7, and 8 on the list, but at least you need to understand that I made a choice not to get 6, 7, and 8. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So let's get started on the top 10 things, and these are not in any particular order. They just sort of fit my flow to my presentation. Number 1, digital and physical evidence. Now the buzzword today, about 3 or 4 years ago, sex assault kits and things with DNA, that was the big buzzword, all right? Maybe a little more than 3 or 4 years ago. Today, digital evidence is the big buzz everywhere. Body cams, cruiser cams, everything under the sun. And if you think you have problems with physical evidence and keeping up with all of that, this digital evidence tidal wave is coming right behind it, and it could be a whole lot bigger than physical evidence. So if you don't have your physical evidence under control, digital evidence is going to be a whole lot harder to deal with because this is not a box sitting on a shelf. This is not something physical that I can hold. It's something digital that you have to control in a totally different way. So the point that I want to make about physical and digital evidence is, what are you doing for those things? Do you have one system that can handle both of those? And that becomes a really, really large consideration when you're handling physical evidence. Does it matter that my physical and digital evidence are in the same software product? Does it matter that I'm not in charge of digital evidence? Does it matter that they think I'm in charge of digital evidence and I don't know? You know? Okay? So within our software, this is a very basic screenshot of a list of physical evidence. And I don't want to over-elaborate this. I mean, it's a list of, what, about 8 or 9 pieces of evidence. And you can see there's some bicycles, some appliances, and we can see the status of this stuff. It's checked and it's checked out. Most software products are going to display a list of physical evidence in that sort of a display. But what happens when I flip one tab to the left, and now I'm seeing all the physical evidence that's related to the digital evidence that's related to this case? For most of you right now, when you deal with your physical evidence, digital evidence is somewhere else. Somebody else is dealing with it. Maybe it's a totally different system altogether. All right? So I would suggest that when you sit down and look at software, one of the top considerations should be, how is it going to handle physical and digital evidence together? Does that make sense to everybody? That is, now, When we get into pricing later, man, you think digital evidence is crazy. Wait till you start pricing out digital evidence systems. That's a whole different animal altogether. We'll talk about that a little bit when we get toward that at the back end of it. All right, so let's go into number 2, and I'm going to stick with the theme of digital evidence for just a moment, and let's talk about video. So body cam. I'm just curious, how many of your departments you are using body cameras in some way or another? Okay? So that's probably half of this room. I'll bet you 2 years from now, everybody will have their hands up. I mean, there's just no way you're getting away from body cam video anymore. Okay? Now, for many of you, you probably don't even have to worry about body cam video at this point. In a worst case scenario, your body cam is a hard drive that's sitting somewhere the officers have access to, and every time they come in with body cam, they dump it on this 5 terabyte hard drive, and we have evidence piling up on that thing, and nobody manages it, okay? So let me speak briefly about the Florence Police Department for just a moment. Florence, Kentucky, it's right down the road from where we're at. They contacted us a few months ago, and all 50 of their officers were using body cam. And what happened was, at the end of the day, they came in, they took each camera, they took and loaded all of this evidence onto a single hard drive. In 2 years, nobody had looked at that drive to clean it off. I mean, disposition, we'll talk about disposition in a little bit, but you have disposition of physical evidence, but you also have disposition of digital evidence. Okay? And right now, most people are not even handling disposition of digital evidence. All right? So when the Florence Police Department came to us, they said, we've got a 5 terabyte hard drive that has all this stuff piling up on it, and we have not done anything to manage it. As a matter of fact, if we have to go back and try to find a video, it becomes a nightmare. All right? What was even worse was when we were in the presentation talking with them, that's when they found out that their IT people, every 6 months, they would take all the oldest video and move it off to a different drive, and they had no idea that was happening. So what happened? So the risk in that is, so now when the media calls up or somebody wants access to a video, they hop on that drive and they think, well, I'm looking at everything we've ever had, and all of a sudden they found out, wait a minute, IT is offloading the oldest stuff in the background. And so now we've been telling people we never had video that maybe we had on a drive sitting in the back. Okay? So, but here's the problem with body cam video. All right? What do you do with all this stuff? Because each one of these files, so for example, this is a screenshot from within our software, and this is the Florence PD. Each one of those are different body cam videos that they're tracking from within our software. Now the thing about body cam video, look at the size of these files. 180 meg, 140 meg, 160. These are typically very large files. They can get up into 400 meg. 500 meg is not a big deal for a body cam video that's a little bit larger in length. All right? So one of the features we have from within our software is you can use our cloud-based product. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But you can store all that video inside your building. It never has to leave your facility. Okay? So one of the things I would not only emphasize is not only are you looking for software that tracks physical and digital evidence, but how is it going to handle all of that body cam video? Because now you're starting to see vendors like Taser where they want to upload all this stuff into the cloud. And I'm a real big fan of putting things up in the cloud. I got no problems with that. But with uploading it into the cloud, you have bandwidth restrictions, you have cost of storing it into the cloud. We handle both of those very well. It doesn't matter to us which one you choose, we can go both roads. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So number 2 is, if I'm using the system for digital evidence, how am I going to store all this body cam video and all these other large files that are rolling our way? Because another extremely important facet of digital evidence is the chain of custody on it, just like the physical evidence. You should be able to go into your software and generate out a physical chain of custody form and a digital chain of custody form. Can you tell if I've got digital video, who's downloaded it, who viewed it, when did they do it, if it's been deleted, when did they delete it? Do you have those answers? You should have those answers. Okay. The nice thing about using our software with our digital video is we are hardware agnostic. We don't care if you use Taser cameras. There are so many vendors out there that are now offering body cameras. We don't care which one of those you use. We're going to help you manage all the digital evidence that's generated, but we don't care which camera you use. And one of the worst decisions you can make is, well, I'm going to buy that camera and I'm going to go with that vendor because they offer software. There's a lot of departments that will have 3, 4, 5 different body camera types. So when you start locking yourself into one particular vendor, all of a sudden now, what they do is they give you the cameras. Have you guys heard now a lot of them are starting to give the body cameras away because they want you to use their system for the digital evidence? You need to be really cautious of that, and you need to ask the question, how do I get that video back if I use your system? Am I storing it in your cloud? Do I control it? Those are questions you have to ask, and most people don't even think about asking those questions. So we are literally hardware agnostic. It does not matter which body cam you want to use. We're just simply helping you manage the digital evidence that's generated by that camera. Okay? So the Florence Police Department, to sort of go back to them just real quick, they're now managing physical and digital evidence and body cam and all of it within the same system. So when they go into the software and bring up a case, one tab is physical, one tab is digital evidence. Okay? All right, so let's move on to the next one, and this may be the one that I think is the most important. All right, let's flash back to yesterday morning when everybody walked in the room. Remember when you were feeling good and energized and you walked in yesterday morning, so opposite how you probably feel right now? All right, so you walk in the room, and yesterday morning, and Joe's done this for every year that I've ever been here, so I hope he did it yesterday, but he goes around the room. It's sort of an icebreaker, and he runs around the room and he asks everybody what, in 2 words or less, and you can only have 2 words, please describe your biggest problem. Did he do that yesterday? Good, okay. So Joe's a creature of habit, so I would have been shocked if he didn't do that. So he goes around the room and he asks everybody, what's your biggest problem? Okay? And what inevitably, if you were to take and sort of summarize the most popular answers, what was the #1 biggest problem people have? Space, disposition, something to do with stuff piling up. Okay, that is the #1 answer. Okay? The reason, there's multiple reasons, but one of the biggest reasons that people are so horrible with disposition is they don't even know what they've got to begin with. They have absolutely no idea what's in the room in order to begin to work on disposition. And I'm really going to spend the rest of our time really harping away on how do we fix that disposition problem. And the first thing it starts out with statistics, getting information to begin with. So I'm going to show you some screenshots from within our software. So when you first log in, and I hope people in the back can see this stuff. I know it's a long way back there. But when you log into our software, the first thing you see are 2 nice looking graphs that are giving you information about stuff that's in your room. And we're really going to hit on this one hard in a minute, but this is a graph that shows a green line of how much stuff is coming in over a 1-year period of time versus the blue line, how much stuff is leaving. And now before you start wanting to ask questions on that, I'm going to come back to that in a minute. This graph over here simply shows you a list of all of your evidence by the top 5 categories. But as I go down to the bottom of the screen, and I know this is really hard to see in the back, this is where we really start to get into the nuts and bolts of what's in my evidence room. I'm curious right now, how many in this room, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, you could log in right this minute to whatever evidence tracking application you're using from right here in this room. I'm not talking about driving back to the PD. I'm talking about right this minute you log in and you can tell me within a 1-minute period of time 75 different statistics about the evidence in your evidence room. You could run down a list and say, hey Ben, I'm glad you asked me. I can tell you how many drug offenses I have, how many are in the last year, how many are in the last 30 days, how many total drugs do I have, how much drugs are checked in, getting over into currency, how much total currency, how much from the last year, how much has been disposed of. General statistics up here in the top right-hand corner, all items that are checked in, 25,578, and on and on and on. Okay, so I asked a question before that, so let me stop for just a minute. But show of hands, please, if you don't mind, how many people could get 75 pieces of information within a matter of 2 minutes from right here in this room? Okay, get them up, guys. Somebody's got, you're telling me in a room of this size, not one person within 2 minutes could get 75 different pieces of information about evidence in their room. Okay, I'll assume you have to log on. Let's assume the internet works. I'll go as far as to assuming the internet works and you have access to getting on the internet. Could you, within a period of time, get all that information within a matter of minutes?
Probably not that pretty.
Okay, so maybe not that pretty. There's a lot of systems out there that you could go in and run 75 different queries and within a couple of hours you could get that information. I'm talking about the minute you log in, it's all summarized on your main screen. Okay? So now let me move forward a little bit. Let's go back, and I really want to focus on this real quick. Okay? Now, I can already tell by the hands that are going up or the lack of hands that are going up, I'm beginning to make some assumptions about the evidence rooms that are in this room. This graph right here, I'm telling you, this one single graph tells me almost everything I need to know about your evidence process. Because again, if Joe Glotta walks into your evidence room, the first question he is most likely going to ask is, how much stuff have you brought in over the last year, and how much are you getting rid of? Is there anybody in here comfortable enough to say that within the last year, I've gotten rid of close to the amount of evidence that I brought in? I'll even go 50%. Anybody want to say I've gone over 50%? So if you bring in 10,000 items in a year, last year you got rid of 5,000. I don't know how low I'd have to go for somebody in the room to raise their hand and say, you know what? I got rid of 3 items last year. I know I did that. Okay? How many? She got 3. We have a 3. She proudly raised her hand. I got a 3. All right? But here's the thing about that chart. What if every day you came in and you were looking at that, I could almost tell you just by looking at that. In fact, look at this right here. Green, how much stuff is coming in versus, I sort of refer to that as a heartbeat down at the bottom. Most of you have a flat line. That simply means I'm bringing in way more than what I'm getting rid of. Now that's sort of a doom and gloom scenario. Let me flip over a little bit. That looks a little better, doesn't it? Now, this is one of our clients, by the way, and look at these numbers. That's 2,000 items right there. So you can tell that in an average month, they're bringing in 2,000 items. In their best month, they got rid of 1,500 items. Okay? So that's not quite as bad, but let me flip forward one more. Now that looks actually a little better. I mean, you can look at this and say, I can tell back in April they did a large disposition. That agency right there actually is probably teetering on the border of I'm getting rid of as much as I'm bringing in. All right? That's a concept we're going to keep hitting on as we go through the next 20 minutes here. All right? So here's a little more. I zoomed in on one of those columns in there that are the drug stats. Now keep in mind, those are all things that are on your system by default. You can actually build your own statistics widgets. If you're one of those real statistic hounds and you want 300 pieces of data, you can go into the software and create another 225 searches and save them, create your own widget so that when you log in, you've got 300 pieces of information. And it's not I have to go in and dig for it every time I want it. It's literally I build it, I show it on the main screen, it's there. What could you do? Think about that for just a moment. What would your worlds be like? Would they be any different if every day you logged in and now I know what I'm dealing with? I agree, you got to be able to do something with all this. It's one thing to just know it, but how different would it be if you knew this information? So here's another, this is firearm stats. So now I'm going to move along, because now I'm running out of time. So let's get into the next thing. Number 4, tasking. The ability to communicate with other users via the system. So right now, let's take an example. Somebody needs some evidence for court. They send you an email, they call you on the phone, they send up a smoke signal. I mean, how do they go about telling you, I need stuff to go to evidence? Most likely it's going to involve a phone call or an email interaction that you have to fulfill that. What if within the software, they could go in and make that request? They could go in and say, hey, I need to, or hey, here's a real crazy notion. What if when a case came up for disposition, you could send them a request asking them what's going on with this case? Okay? Now that's a nice feature to be able to go in and do it, but here's the real importance of being able to do that from within the software. I've got a recorded history of all of that communication. So now when you email them and say, hey, I've had this roll of toilet paper for 15 years. Can I please get rid of this? Oh yeah, that case pled out 14 and a half years ago. I can't believe you're still holding on to that. And then all of a sudden you get rid of it, and 2 years later they come back and say, you would not believe this, they need that roll of toilet paper now. And you're sitting there like, what do you mean? You told me to get rid of it. And they're like, no, I didn't. Yes, I did. And here's the date and time you asked me to do it. And I don't have to go digging through email and other sort of systems to try to find out where that communication took place. It's right here. You told me to do it on this day and time. Anything else you need before I go back to my work? Okay? We want to take, with tasking, we want to take all forms of communication. I'm even talking about the attorneys, the people that call you on the phone. Can you tell me what's going on with this case? We want them logging in, and if they need you to do something, we want it done in a task. We want to automate lots and lots of functionality, which takes me into automating everything. All right? What I mean by automate everything, we live in a world today, I don't know, let me ask a question because maybe somebody will surprise me. Within the last year, has your police chief come into your office and talked about an abundance of additional capital, and he is all excited about getting you additional staff for the evidence room? Anybody had that conversation in the last year? Okay, I'm more sure of the answer to that than, seriously? We got one person. All right, so one person, you're the first out of like 30 classes I've ever done where it's like, I'd have to hear more about the details. It sounds like there may be some catch to that, or who knows. For body cam video, so it's stored to track all that stuff, okay? Given that most people don't have that affordable pleasure of the chief walking in and saying, we've got money, we want to get some things taken care of, we're in a world now where you are expected to do more with less. We have to look at every angle of the evidence room and automate as much as we can, all right? And one thing I mean by automating, let's go back to the Omaha PD. When they bought our software 4 years ago, and I went and sort of did the look around at the Omaha Police Department, they had 5 people that worked in the evidence room, okay? They bring in about 80,000 pieces of evidence every year. And they had 5 full-time employees. And you know what those people did all day long? This is the only job they had, okay? They took the handwritten piece of paper from the officer with the evidence on it, okay? Every day they took a stack of these things and put it on top of this stack that was about 3 foot tall, and every day they'd grab a handful of stuff off the bottom. And those 5 people all day long sat there and entered all that evidence into the system. That's what they did all day long, okay? In a little bit, I'm going to come and tell you, I'm going to go back and tell you about the Omaha, and I'm going to answer that question off. Okay? We want to automate everything. We do not want officers handwriting anything. We want officers logging into the software, entering their evidence. When officers log in, you can interact with officers via tasking, things like that. We want people involved in the system. The only way you can automate everything is getting more people involved in it. Okay? If you buy the software system that is designed to run on one computer, in one area of the evidence room, and you're the only one that ever does anything, your entire day is going to be entering evidence, and that's all you will ever do. You will never have a minute of time to handle disposition. Okay? So that goes into, can our software, SAFE, fix my disposition problem? Yes, because we're going to automate the entire process. All right, so I believe you probably saw a little bit of a disposition process yesterday. Our system will automatically notify an officer when a case is up for review. It does that automatically. So now they get an email that says, hey, I need an answer on this. Your job is to make sure they respond to that. Who in the department, when evidence comes up for disposition, who's the most knowledgeable person to make a decision on getting rid of that evidence? You or the officer? The officer. But for whatever reason, in most evidence rooms, you get tasked with, you got to go in and figure out what's going on, which is ignorant. It's stupid. The guy over there that brought the evidence in fact, I almost guarantee you, if all of a sudden he has to respond to these requests, he may be a lot less likely to bring everything in the house in. Okay? Throw that back on him. All he's going to do is get an email that says, what do you want to do with this evidence? And then you can automatically start handling. That's how you start getting on top of disposition. If your game plan is, I'm just going to work harder, you're going to lose. That's never, ever going to work. Okay? So Joe brought this up at the very end, discrepancy reports. Discrepancy reports are a huge part of our software. So everything that he said earlier, I agree with, except one amendment I'd like to make to it. He talked about at the end of an audit, you print out a piece of paper, and then if anything ever comes up, you can go back and dig in that paper. I don't like that part of the answer. What I like is, within our software, when you do a discrepancy report, it takes every time you scan an item, it stores it against that item. So all you got to do is bring up a piece of evidence and see any time it was ever involved in a discrepancy report. So that makes it very easy, and if you ever have to go back to the paper, I'm good with that. So this is how our software handles it. When you go in and scan all the barcodes, it goes in and here are all the discrepancies listed down here. Everything he said earlier, I completely agree with, and you need a system that can do that. So make sure discrepancy reports, you see that when you're looking at the software. All right, customization and configuration. The only thing I want to say about this is look and see what they mean by customization and configuration. A lot of people say our system's customizable and they allow you to modify a drop-down. You can turn values off and on. What I mean by customization, I want to go in and build entirely new data collection fields. As a matter of fact, I want to build a new data collection field and I want to be able to search for it and put it on a report. That's almost the question you need to ask. What do you mean by customization? Can I create a whole new field? Can I have a drop down that says, you know, what color was that surfboard? Give them some stupid off the wall scenario so that they wouldn't be like, oh yeah, well we do that, you know, something really crazy. And then the question is, can I put that on a report or does that require you to do it? And oh, by the way, if it requires you to do it, how much is that going to cost to get that done? Okay? Those are questions you have to ask. All right? Moving along. Now, I'm projecting, this is sort of the 100,000 foot level. Okay? When we started rebuilding our system a couple of years ago, we built it in such a way. So here's the Omaha PD. Okay? They're one of our biggest clients. We love the Omaha PD, been a great customer for a lot of years. But outside of the Omaha PD, look at all of these other police departments that are in a pretty close proximity to them. So here's how I want to explain a shared architecture. Do we live in a world where it seems as if we're heading toward a future of sharing information with other departments, or we're doing less sharing? Can everybody agree? We're probably heading down a road where people just, we're at a point now where, oh, you've got all this evidence. Can I see it? Can I be a read-only user? What if I'm a court? Okay? Our software was built in such a way that if you have other departments in your area, including courts, that are also using this, imagine this scenario. You bring in a piece of evidence. You check it out to the court checks it out to the lab sends it to the sheriff's office for whatever reason, and then it comes back to you. How many different chain of custodies were involved in that little scenario I just described right there? 4 or 5? That's what I lost track of it. Okay? What if one barcode, one piece of evidence, as it moved around, my chain of custody it showed everything. So now when you show up at court, I can run a report, boom, there's everything. Now I will agree, I'm maybe years down the road for some of you guys. I mean, a lot of you are probably like, I just need to get this crap cleaned up, forget about sharing it with everybody. I don't want to share anything. I've got a big pile to deal with to begin with. I'm just talking, our system, it has been built so that we can head in that direction. You can head in that direction. So it may not be important to you today, but man, wouldn't that be a good thing to sit down and ask, just to sort of get a forward thinking of where that company is heading? Am I operating in a silo? Am I putting this on one machine, on one computer? Or is the whole department working in this process? Because if you're of the mindset, it's just me and I'm the only one doing it, you're always going to have a pile of crap. You're going to be the only one that ever deals with it. And then that next person that comes in, they're going to be like, man, I'm just dealing with a pile of crap too. Okay? So last couple of things, you need to bring these up when you're looking at how do I import data into the software? Okay? Do you have a mechanism for importing data from wherever it's at? All right? What about integrating with an RMS system? And we do that, I won't say frequently, but we do integrate with RMS systems, and probably everybody in here has a different one, and it's always a case-by-case scenario. Most of our clients don't integrate with an RMS. They go with that, this is the evidence system, this is what we're going to use. How do they handle training? Even more importantly, how do they handle continued training down the road? Because I'm telling you, what people deal with all the time, and some of you in here probably could certainly sympathize with this. Yeah, I bought that system 5 years ago. I loved it. I have not had one update to it. I have not had any continued training on that product. And here I am 5 years later, or for some of you, maybe it's 20 years later. I'm still in the same product they bought 20 years ago. And, we pay maintenance and support every year, but nothing ever happens. Ask the question, how do you do training today and in the future? And then the last one, what does your implementation process look like? Okay? You need to look at that. How do you handle getting me from where I am today to this grand scheme of doing disposition? Okay? So moving into this, I want to go back to Omaha for just a minute. Remember that situation I described a moment ago where they had 5 evidence people and all they did all day long was enter evidence? So Captain Kyle, who was in charge of that whole process, he gave us one of the coolest quotes I've ever had. I didn't ask him for it, but it just sort of came up. He told another agency they were working with, we are disposing of evidence at an alarming rate. How many of you would love to be disposing of evidence at an alarming rate? Come on now, I gotta see more hands than that. That's what we're shooting for here. I want to dispose of evidence at an alarming rate. How do we get there? That becomes the question, okay? This is one other really cool quote that we had from the Frederick County Sheriff's Office. By implementing Tracker, we have been able to get rid of so much evidence that we stopped plans for a new storage facility for the Property and Evidence Department. They literally had on the books, they were going to build a new building just to store evidence. Can you imagine how excited the mayor was when all of a sudden his grand vision of implementing this software saved them an evidence building? I mean, he thought, he just took it. As you would expect any great mayor to do, he had nothing to do with the process, but when it worked out really well, he was all on board to take and run with that. They did not build an entire building because they were able to start getting rid of evidence. How many of you know for a fact that this stuff is piling up at such a degree, it's just a matter of time before somebody's going to have to answer the question, it's laying in the hallway now, what do you want to do with this stuff? Okay? Because all I got to do is go back to that chart I showed you earlier, the one that showed how much is coming in over a year's period of time and how much is going out. That's going to let you know to what degree this is a problem. And oh, by the way, while this is all a problem, let's let you handle digital evidence while you're at it, okay? Because you've got so much time on your hands, let's just do that too, okay? Last thing, comparison. Some things you just absolutely have to be aware of when you start looking at other systems. Be wary of the word modules. Ask the vendor you're talking to, how do you sell your product? Are there modules involved? That thing you just demoed to me, was that everything? Or am I going to find out down the road that little thing that's a module, I wasn't aware of that. You got to know that because a lot of the systems out there sell modularized systems, which means you can buy for a grand total of $2,000, but oh, you want that digital evidence package? Well, that's $80,000. And you found that out after you bought the first module. We do not sell modules to our software. We sell licensing based on concurrent licenses. So I'll be right up front and tell you, the way we sell a license is how many people are logging in at the same moment in time, and my entire goal in this world is to give you more reason to have more people logging in. So when I show you this cool new thing we developed that now all of a sudden your attorneys can log in, you know, you can look at that and say, hey, I don't want that or don't need that, it doesn't cost you any money, but if you decide, hey, yeah, I do want the attorneys logging in, that may affect your concurrent licensing. So we do not sell modules at all, and you need to be aware of that. Our product is a cloud-based product. Okay? We've been doing that for almost 10 years, and 10 years ago that was a big deal for everybody. Today it's a lot less of a deal. Most of your IT people are going to say, hey, I don't need anything more to handle it. I want to put this stuff in the cloud. Let them handle it. Okay? We do have a version of our product you can buy and put in your building, but that's typically really large agencies that, you know, they've got IT staff that they're like, listen, we're not putting it outside of our building. It is an option, but 90% of our entire client base is using our cloud-based application. So I wish I had a client sitting in this room, but they would have raised their hand if I'd have said, hey, can you get in and get that information? They'd have been like, yep, let me rattle off the stats. All right? Last thing, cost. Cost is crazy. I'm telling you right now, this is even worse than cars. You know, you go out and get the sort of Pinto type car for $5,000, and then you can go out and get the BMW. But this isn't just as simple as, you know, do I have to manually roll the windows up myself or do I have a nice button? The difference between these systems can be stark, all right? So when you go out and you're like, man, I'm gonna buy that $3,000 system, you gotta keep in mind, it's not just that you're rolling the windows up by yourself, you may be the only one ever rolling up the windows, and there's just, you don't have the time to do that. So you really have to balance out, what are the costs of these systems, how close do I have to get to the BMW type system? Can I get a BMW system, but it's not that expensive, all right? The average install of our software, okay? The average install of our software, first year is going to be around $10,000. Year after year, probably an average of $6,000 to $7,000. It is not $1,000 software. I'll be the first to tell you, we are not the Pinto. All right? And it's fine to buy the Pinto, but don't buy the Pinto thinking, man, this thing's the BMW. It's going to help me do auto disposition. Because most likely the Pinto is going to be, you're the only one ever driving the Pinto. All right? That's not going to fix your disposition problem. It's not going to fix your digital evidence problem. So it's fine to get the Pinto, but don't do it, you know, irregardless of all these other things you've learned today. All right? All right, so what is your, you know, the chief's always like, what's the return on investment? You know, so if we're going to put money into this, what's the value proposition? Okay? So one of the couple of things I would throw out immediately is, how much does bad press cost? How much does it cost when Joe Lotta's sitting here reeling off your agency time after time as he goes all around the country saying, they suck, they're horrible, this guy did this. You know, what does that cost? Okay? The next thing is more work done with less human resources. The only way you can fix, you cannot hire enough people to get a lot of this stuff under control. You have to automate different areas of the system. You have to. You don't have a choice about that, all right? People cannot work as fast as what computer systems do, and they certainly can't do it for the amount of money that you can do it with a computer system. All right? Last thing is you begin to reduce space for needed evidence. Many times people buy our software and other systems because a big problem just happened. Don't wait until the big problem is already at your door. All right? Try to get on the forefront of this thing. Try to get ahead of this stuff. Maybe you get to a point where someday you're disposing of evidence at an alarming rate. All right? Get ahead of that. Don't be behind the curve all the time. Okay? Last slide. What are the obstacles you're going to have to overcome? When you go back, you know, what are the biggest things you're going to have to deal with? Number one is change. People just don't like change. Officers don't like change. You don't like change. People just don't like change. Some people do. I love change. I'm all for it. If it's going to make it better, let's do it. All right? But you're going to have to fight that battle of it is something different. All right? You have to be a little bit forward thinking, and you have to sell them on the idea. We cannot just stay where we're at. Because that's what so many people do is they just sit where they're at and nothing ever changes. All right? You got to be forward thinking. The next one, and I love this is one of my favorite ones. Well, just use the RMS system. It's got an evidence module. All right? Go down to the lab and ask them if they're using the RMS system. Go to your latent unit. Are they just using the RMS system? Go to ballistics. Are you just using the RMS system? Why is it that the evidence room has to use just the RMS system? I can emphatically state across the board, I don't care what system you're using, they're all crap. Okay? They spend 10 minutes a year doing whatever they do with evidence just so that you can input a piece of evidence and to like 10% reliability it's on that shelf. I will say this, I think broadly, it doesn't matter what evidence management system you buy, it's going to be better than your RMS system. Get out of the RMS system. You're going to have to sell the chief on the fact, I understand it's in there, but they stink at what they do, all right? I need a specialized system. Tell them, I'm doing specialized work down here. I gotta get rid of evidence. I gotta deal with digital evidence. That RMS thing is not the answer, okay? But that's a fight. Know it right now. When you sit down with the chief and you tell them it's gonna cost money, one of the first things they're gonna push back on is, well, our RMS system has an evidence module. Why don't you just use that? Be ready for that because you're gonna have to deal with that. And the next thing is cost. There is money involved with it. But that's why I would go right back to this screen. What is the return on investment? What is the cost of not doing anything? How much does a new building cost? How much does not finding evidence, digital evidence, going to cost? Okay? All right, so I went a little bit longer than I thought, but I've got probably 5 more minutes for questions.
Do you have any standard interfaces built with any other CAD/VET RMS vendors?
So that goes back to the, that is always a specialized answer where it depends on who the vendor is. We have integrated with.
None already built that you have agreements with?
Well, no, there is, so like Tiburon, and what do they used to be out there? They got bought out recently, whoever they used to be. We have one with them. I don't know all of them off the top of our head, but that's something, again, our first question is, why do you need an integration? So we've actually got a document that explains some of the things you just, you know, if your answer to this is yes, 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 then you probably need an integration. If it's no, 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 then you probably don't need it. Because very few of our clients actually do that sort of integration. They're big, they're painful, they're costly, and most people just don't want to mess with them. But that's a good question. Yes? I am sure that answer is yes. I don't have a grant writing person that goes out and looks for the funds. I know that the federal government is always giving money away. Your best angle on that right now is digital, is the body cam. That's where they're pouring money into it right now to get people up to snuff on that. But I don't have anything that I would, oh yeah, go to this thing, there's the answer. Other questions? Okay, well let me end on this. You can have a copy of this presentation if you would like. All I need you to do is write down your name, your email, and your phone number, and we will email you a copy of the presentation. If you would actually like to go a step further than that and you actually want to see a demo of the actual product, I know I only showed a few screenshots in here, but I'm more than happy via an online session to run you through, it won't be me probably, but somebody will run you through a demo of the product so that you can see it in much more detail than what I showed you today. So I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. I hope there was a lot of good information. Again, just give me your name and email if you want any of that, and we'll take it from there. And I've got cards up here too if anybody needs a card. So thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed lunch, and you guys enjoyed the last day and a half of your class. Yes, absolutely.
What's that?
You still recording there too?
That is good, yes.